Direct Connection is made by MPT to serve all of our diverse communities and is made possible by the generous support of our members. Thank you. Live from Maryland Public Television, this is Direct Connection with Jeff Salkin.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in for Direct Connection. We begin tonight with the stunning news from Annapolis today that Governor Hogan has been diagnosed with what he called an aggressive form of cancer. The governor himself made the announcement with his family by his side.
Although this cancer I have is a very aggressive one, and it's spread very rapidly, it's also one that responds very aggressively to chemotherapy treatment. And that there's a very strong chance of success. Not only a strong chance of survival, but a strong chance of beating it all together and getting rid of the cancer. The best news is that my odds of getting through this and beating this are much, much better than the odds I had of beating Anthony Brown to become the 62nd governor of Maryland.
One of the reporters in the room for the governor's announcement was George Lettuce of WBAL-TV. George joins us live from Annapolis now. And George, on TV, we could see the governor, we could see his family, but there were a large number of people in that room. Give us a sense of the atmosphere.
Well, I can tell you that it was kind of a roller coaster. You could tell by the soundbite that you just aired, there was a sense of humor in the room, thanks to the governor. That's just his personality. But it was pretty tense at the beginning because we really didn't know exactly what this announcement was all about. We had heard some rumors, but we weren't sure. And we knew when his entire cabinet showed up minutes before the press conference, we knew this was something pretty major. And when he came out with that diagnosis, there was an audible hush in the room. Many people did not see this coming. But as you saw, the governor did a great job of lighting the room up, essentially letting us breathe and having a laugh in what was a pretty tough moment.
Well, you certainly feel for the governor as a human being and for his family and his co-workers there. And I guess maybe it was for their benefit as much as for the governor's himself that he injected a little bit of humor at a couple of points in his remarks.
Absolutely. He mentioned the Anthony Brown beating the odds. He mentioned the fact that he's going to lose those wonderful gray locks of his, and he'll lose some weight. But he really made the point that he was not leaving office, that he is still the governor of Maryland, and that his lieutenant governor, Boyd Rutherford, is prepared to be acting governor if at some point the governor is too incapacitated, whether it be doing procedures, through chemotherapy and the like, that the state of Maryland will go on despite these challenging times for the governor.
George Lettuce, a reporter for WBAL-TV, is working on his 11 o'clock story, which you can see on Channel 11 News at 11 tonight. George, thank you very much.
No problem, Jeff.
Now with us in the studio are veteran State House reporters Charles Robinson of MPT, Len Lazaruk of MarylandReporter.com, and Barry Rascovar of PoliticalMaryland.com. Gentlemen, thanks to all of you for being here. Between the four of us, I think we have covered Maryland politics for 200 years or thereabouts. but we haven't seen this before, Len.
No. It was quite surprising, and I was remarking to Barry, and I was remarking myself. Nobody knew what this was about. We're expecting a decision on the purple line, and this was rapidly put together. And so when the family showed up, and there were no transportation people, and then this announcement handled in a way that is actually just typical of Larry Hogan. I mean, it's just straight straightforward. Here's the situation. Make a few jokes. And I was thinking on the way over, even toward the end, he made some political points. That I'm going to continue to fight for those things. His campaign message. So even while he's fighting for his life, he's continuing to fight for his political life.
Forget him. He's governor of Maryland, but has only held elective office since January of this year.
5 months. 5 months. 5 months today. 5 months today.
Unbelievable story.
Yes, it is. And I think at this stage, what we have to look forward to is learning a lot more about cancer, because he's going to become a poster child. Regardless of the outcome, he's the poster child here. And he made it clear in the press conference that he was going to be very transparent. And so I think as his treatment progresses, we'll probably learn a lot more about exactly the degree to which this is spread and so forth, but also learn more about this non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
That's an interesting point. The decision Charles, to come out and have a news conference at 4 o'clock today and not try to keep it private for some further length of time and have it leak out.
We actually got a sense that there was something wrong when he canceled a Board of Public Works meeting. And that normally doesn't happen. And the staff kind of said, well, he had a bug because he had just returned from an Asian trip that went relatively well. And he talked about that's when he kind of found out that he was having some problems. The other thing that, those of us who follow the politics of it all, you have to read the Constitution as to what happens if, for whatever reason, he's either incapacitated because he's doing treatment, or God forbid, the worst would happen. And it's kind of, I think, Len, would you call it murky at best?
Well, Len was kind enough to print out the state constitution.
It's only murky to the extent that there doesn't have to be a formal transfer of power, that the lieutenant governor can say, the governor's incapacitated, so I'm going to be the acting governor. And if there's a dispute about this, then they go to the Court of Appeals, and the Court of Appeals has the last word. So you could kind of be in an in and out sort of state here, but Maryland is fairly flexible. But for instance, when the governor leaves the state, he doesn't leave the lieutenant governor in charge.
Well, sometimes he does, sometimes he doesn't. William Donald Schaefer never sent a letter to Mickey Steinberg when he left the state.
That may have been a matter of personalities.
Yes.
And from everything we hear, Hogan and Boyd Rutherford, and Charles, you've spent some time with Rutherford, they're actually close friends.
Sure,
they've
changed the mechanisms by how they work. Essentially what they do is, Boyd's been given certain duties because the lieutenant governor really doesn't have any assigned duties.
Nor did back to the Schaefer years when Mickey Steinberg suddenly didn't have his own staff anymore. But Rutherford was never going to have a staff. Right.
He got rid of the staff and he merged his staff with the governor's staff. I think the other historical perspective here, if Boyd Rutherford, is moved into the governor's office, he would be the first African-American governor in the state. And this being kind of like the dividing line between the North and the South, it would send a unique precedent, because remember, we thought we were going to get a first African-American governor and Anthony Brown, and we could get it in Boyd Rutherford.
So, hypothetical, because the governor said that he's going to begin his chemotherapy as an inpatient in the hospital. It's that intense that he'll be in intensive care for the first round of chemo, if I heard him right. And the governor had to use his powers in April to call out the National Guard in Baltimore. So, given all that, you wouldn't want a point where there wasn't somebody with the authority to do it. What's your read on what has to happen, or nothing has to happen?
Well, I think based on whatever, this is just speculation, but based on what he said today, that they're just going to play it by ear, and that he doesn't feel he's going to have to give up his powers. It's not like he's having an operation where he's under anesthesia and there's a long period of recovery. But the lieutenant governor, according to the Constitution, can actually take over if the governor is incapacitated. But I think it was very clear that Larry Hogan plans to win this thing as he planned to win the election, and he may have been one of the few people that early on that thought he was actually going to win
Election
last year.
Eve, he was one of the few people.
Last year.
Let's grab a phone call here. Anne Arundel County, this is David. David, thanks for the call. Go ahead.
Hi, this is second-time caller David S. from Crofton. I have a question about the credentials of Mr. Rutherford. Obviously, Mr. Hogan has a lot to go through here, and he'll have some downtime. Going forward, how will Mr. Rutherford be able to lead the state in this, whatever time frame it is?
David, you got it. Thank you very much. Good question. So you spent some time with Mr. Rutherford,
Yes.
who has extensive management experience,
Sure.
both federal and state government.
He actually, both Hogan and Rutherford, served in the Ehrlich administration. And when he left the Ehrlich administration, he went to the Bush administration, W. Bush, that is, and worked inside of that. He tells you quite often, I like the work. I am not necessarily enamored by the ceremonial position. And I think that's what you're going to find. And that's been going on. The governor appointed him head of the opiate task force in the state. And he's been going around the state essentially, trying to find the information. We're supposed to get a report sometime before the end of the year on his findings. So,
and he's filled in on the Board of Public Works.
He has.
As a matter of fact, in a recent Board of Public Works meeting where he was present, he made the remark that, well, I'm really a policy wonk. I know you guys may be bored by all this, but I love this stuff. So I think in a way, this is an ideal situation because Rutherford understands government. He's been there and done that in the Department of General Services, which he ran. He also really ran the Department of Agriculture on a national level. And right now, you're in a time of the year where there's not a lot happening in Annapolis. Everything's going on behind the scenes, and it's running the government that counts. And Rutherford is in a perfect position to do that.
And his position as General Services Secretary gives him a special overview of what the other agencies do as opposed to the silos that other people might be in. And that secretary sits at all the Board of Public Works meetings. So he's very familiar with how the internal government works.
Somebody pointed out that we've been waiting on a decision about the Purple Line in the Washington suburbs, the Red Line in Metro Baltimore. It's the wrong day to talk about that, but more broadly, how does this impact the work of government, even if we are at a slow time?
Well, for one thing, Hogan believes in a decentralized type of operation, so that you have the governor at the top, but then you have the cabinet secretaries who are really doing the work and making a lot of the decisions. So I think the type of operation he has set up plays to this type of problem that he has now, that the cabinet secretaries are already doing most of the work. They'll continue to do so. The big decisions will be run up the flagpole, and it'll be the lieutenant governor or governor making the final decisions.
And the transportation secretary has already weighed in on the Purple Line. And I think what the governor said was, bring it in at a lower cost. I'm not thrilled with this big number you keep bringing to me. And that's where I think a Boyd Rutherford can get into the minutia. Where can we trim stuff in order to make it work? And I think that's what you're going to hear going forward. Obviously the governor is still the governor of the state, and he will weigh in and he will make the final decision. But I think he will lean on the lieutenant governor to do some of the heavy lifting that governors may have done in the past.
And we saw a very, very strong, upbeat governor, but this intensive chemo, he's going to look terrible at some points, and it really takes. But he's going to lose his hair. He's going to lose some weight, but and he's just going to look bad because they have to kill the thing that's trying to kill him inside his own body.
And there will be days when he just doesn't feel like getting out of bed, and he's going to have to turn the running of the government over to either the lieutenant governor or his chief of staff, and that could be where the tension is going to lie, that the inner circle around Governor Hogan doesn't want to relinquish their control to the lieutenant governor.
And in terms of the broader team, the only parallel I can think of is when Marvin Mandel went away for a period of time, and Blair Lee III was the acting governor of the state, and there were two different people with two different political backgrounds, and you had staff changeover. You're not, I mean, even if Mr. Rutherford were to be acting governor for some period of time, you would expect, I think, the same staff to stay on the job.
No problems with staff. I think, remember that he didn't create new staff. He merged whatever his operations were with the governor's staff, and they were trying to send a simple message. We're a team, and we're going to act like a team as we do the work of the state.
I think the public's going to like what they see of Boyd Rutherford. So far, they haven't seen very much.
He's not a politician.
He's not a politician, but he's a very likable, very intelligent person. And I think when he gets a little more before the public, they're going to see, well, he's really cut from the same cloth as Larry Hogan, maybe with a little less humor.
But before we go, I just wanted to make the point that for reporters, the politicians are generally just the other people, the people at the other end of the microphone. And you really, if you're doing it right, you shouldn't be friendly, you shouldn't be close, you shouldn't really be even empathetic. But I think today everybody is empathetic with what Larry Hogan.
Social media has been bipartisan on the sincerity of the problem and the challenge that the governor faces. Martin O'Malley has weighed in, as well as Anthony Brown, as well as all the congressional delegation. And even Rance Priebus from the GOP has weighed in.
All right, that's a good place to leave it. Mm-hmm. Charles, Len, Barry, thanks for the time. See you guys soon, and we will continue to cover the situation on MPT's State Circle program this Friday. Just ahead tonight, violence is up, arrests are down in Baltimore. We'll find out why coming up.
Tonight on MPT.
Next time, we revisit the land of the gold rush to find out which treasures have struck it rich in vintage Sacramento.
It's one of the nicest that I've seen.
Oh, I am very happy.
Good.
Good.
Really? Wow, that's pretty good.
Oh my gosh, no.
Can you guess what values went up, down, or stayed the same? Find out next time on Antiques Roadshow.
Tonight at 8 on MPT. Next time on Father Brown.
No, Father, this is a crime scene.
Sid stumbles on a man trying to get rid of a body.
Don't go making a fuss.
Why is Sullivan covering this up?
And when Father Brown looks into the case...
Who was that man?
MI5.
He may be in over his head.
Once people disappear, it can be hard to find them again.
What have you gone and got yourself mixed up in this time?
Father Brown. Tonight at 10 on MPT.
Here's a taste of the next Maryland Farm and Harvest.
One mint chocolate chip.
There's plenty of smiles going around at Broom's Bloom.
Now this is something.
The horses really think it's the top of the line candy. Yum.
Join us next time for Maryland Farm and Harvest.
Tuesday night at 7 on MPT.
Joining us now in the studio, Kevin Sherd, the co-founder and executive director of the Mario Do Right Foundation, also author of Lessons of Redemption, now in paperback.
Yes, in paperback.
Thanks for coming in. For people not familiar with your story, you grew up in Baltimore?
Grew up in Baltimore.
And got in a little trouble.
Young kid, in and out of trouble. I began dealing drugs at age 16. And I spent almost 12 years in prison for dealing drugs. And so for the last 8 or 9 years, I've been working in drug prevention. trying to keep kids out of that type of situation.
What part of town did you grow up in?
West Baltimore.
Whereabouts?
Baltimore Street, Emerson Village. I grew up with a substance abusing father, so we were transient in some regards, and we moved around a lot.
Yeah. Take me back to that time when you were a 16-year-old kid. Because one of the big issues, there's not a lot of opportunities. If you're a 16-year-old on the make and you're living there, that's kind of the big opportunity. Is that how you saw it?
And that's how I saw it, but I also saw it is that I didn't have a lot of positive people around in my life at that time. And I was making a lot of bad decisions. I was looking at guys in the street as role models, when that's always a bad thing. There weren't a lot of doctors and lawyers in my neighborhood. They were guys that were getting into trouble. And so, you know, I made the bad decision of going down that road. And, you know, and that's why I talk to kids today about the importance of having role models, the importance of having mentors. Mentors is a really big deal. And I think we don't look at that as all the time as a something that's really, really important for the community.
Were you using a little bit too? Did that get you in, or the?
Ironically, it wasn't. I was actually fearful I had fear of using drugs because I saw what heroin did to people in my neighborhood and people that I was dealing to. So I was actually, and that was pretty hypocritical of me, right? To not use it myself, but I would make sure somebody else would. But yeah, no, that never was the issue for me.
When you went away, it was federal prison. What was the charge?
Heroin trafficking.
Okay.
Yeah, heroin trafficking.
Does that mean you had a pretty big operation at that point?
There was a point where I was making about $23,000 a day in Baltimore, which is for that age, and you're talking 22, 23 years old. So that was pretty, you know, that's pretty big for a kid that age. You're literally still a kid, right? But you have these weapons, you have this dangerous narcotic, and you're making money, and you know, and so, but reality is you're still a kid.
You were talking to kids today. You just got off the train back from New York. What do you tell them?
The importance of making positive decisions. The importance of staying focused, and the importance of surrounding yourself with good people that are on the right track, that are doing good things. And it's a lot of them out here. Sometimes you got to look a little harder, but there's lots of kids across Baltimore, across this country, doing good stuff.
What's your perspective on what's happening in Baltimore right now? I mean, it's been a tumultuous couple of months.
Right.
The Freddie Gray death in custody, you had the protests, you had the riots. That subsides, but now you have this flare-up in violence,
right,
and the police not arresting a whole lot of people. What do you think's going on?
Well, it's a few things going on. One of the things is that the pharmacies that were looted during the uprising, a lot of those drugs that were looted out of those pharmacies made it to the streets. So we're talking about opiates, we're talking about Oxycontin, Percocets. Yeah. So these things are on the streets right now, and it's of course it's causing them, you know, a lot of issues in the streets. So that's one thing, and then the other thing, you know, I'm almost certain that you have some officers that may be, you know, afraid to be the next, you know, quote unquote 6 officers that got and get involved in that Freddie Gray situation. And of course, they're probably backing up a little bit, of course. Yeah. There's no question about that.
So the hope is to get through the summer with things kind of quiet. Give me a short-term fix. If you were mayor of Baltimore, what would you do?
Summer jobs to get these kids off the streets. To get these recreation centers open, and to get these kids out of harm's way. My biggest fear are the bystanders, the kids that are bystanders, because, you know, there's not a lot of 15, 14-year-old old kids running around with guns, but they're in the way of dealers and guys engaged in a lot more violent stuff.
Longer term, so summer jobs in the short term. Beyond that, it's still jobs?
Well, beyond that, we need jobs. We need a war on poverty, right? And we need we need to fix our education system, our education programs. It's ironic to me that the United States has, you're number 13 or 12 in the world in education, that's ridiculous, right? And so jobs and poverty, we have to attack poverty in Baltimore.
Kevin Sherd of the Mario Do Right Foundation and Lessons of Redemption. You can find more about him online. We appreciate you coming by.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Thank you for joining us for Direct Connection. Back Thursday with your money and business. Have a good night.
This program was made by MPT to serve all of our diverse communities.